Oh, oh.
Did you get that? This meeting
I
is being
did.
recorded.
Yeah.
All right, so I
Got it.
pressed record.
Cool.
All
Okay.
right,
This
so
is cool.
we're doing a little bit of a different thing today
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
well, I'm getting ready to go out of town. So it's kind of like been busy. My schedule's been busy and
Yeah.
I'm trying to kind of like fit play dates in and camps in
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So we thought we'd try like a Zoom call to record, especially
Yeah.
when each of us goes out of town. So we're not lapsing in our videos and not lapsing
Yeah.
in our communication. So we're
Right.
giving this
Yeah. Because I like how it flows. Like, what do? We release a video like every other day or something.
Yeah.
And so that's helpful. So that if we stopped for 2 weeks or whatever, it'd be kind of funny.
Yeah,
So,
I know. I just feel.
and we usually have a lot to talk about anyway. So.
I know. Yeah, we can always process stuff, and I like
Yeah.
having the regular, just accountability of putting a video.
Yeah, for
up.
sure.
Like even
Yes.
though nobody's really watching us at this point, but
I mean, we got how many views on that one?
What intimacy?
It's like 13 views or something. I was like,
exactly.
whoa.
And it wasn't even my kids because I got the whole like, Mom, you did a video on sex. And I was like, no, it wasn't on sex. It was intimacy. Yeah. There are other things.
That's very different. Yeah.
And
or
they're
can
like,
be different. Yeah.
Taylor was like,
oh, that's so funny.
I was like, okay.
So have they watched the other ones?
They watch a few of them. Yeah, they do. So
my girls have watched like maybe a couple of my individual ones, but I don't know if they've ever watched ours. And it was funny because we were at my mom's yesterday and she's like, well, did the girls watch it? And I said, I don't think so. And my mom was like, well, it's a great way to get to know your mom. And I was like, that's really cute that she said that. Because I think I'm probably a little bit different, talking with you about certain stuff than I am with them. And we go in a little in depth and everything and talk about our thoughts and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, I think my kids are a little bit scared that I will talk about them. Like when I'm doing my other videos for the coaching, I'll ask permission, like, hey, can I talk about this or whatever?
Yeah, that's good. Sometimes I don't even ask permission.
When we're talking, just because we start talking about stuff. Yeah. So it's almost like it's better that they don't watch a lot of these videos. They do watch a lot of my other videos. And Taylor said, like, I like watching your videos for that very same reason. Like, I feel like it's just you. It's real and, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway. But yeah, I was, so the other thing is we were supposed to meet earlier. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Oh no, that's
Lately,
okay.
I've been trying to go with the flow of things. The main thing I felt bad about was that I told you, let's meet at 10:30. And then some people came over and they stayed a lot longer. And it wasn't irritating. I wasn't like, I felt bad. I told you a certain time. And then I was like, okay, I'm here. But I was thinking about that. Like after they left, I was like, oh man, like, should I have said something like, oh, I scheduled this other thing? But I wasn't feeling irritated when they were here.
Right.
Like,
I was wondering about that too. I was like, I wonder if she said anything or if she would say anything like, oh, I had this meeting or, whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I did. So, my friend came over, she dropped her kids off. Sometimes she stays, sometimes she doesn't. And she dropped her kids off at 8:30. So when I scheduled at 10:30,
wow.
Even if she stays a
plenty
couple
of
hours,
time.
it's kind of a long stay. We still have time to meet. And then it kind of like one thing led to another, and they got a new puppy, and then her husband was a puppy, and they decided to bring the puppy over. So then it was just
my gosh.
Okay, it's 12:30. But I was sitting in the moment, and I was like, the only thing I feel really bad about is that I told Katie 10:30, and now it's 12:30.
Right.
It was not feeling like, I wasn't feeling like I needed to get them out. So I was thinking about this as I was prepping to set up our meeting and reschedule our meeting.
Yeah.
Just about how lately I've been feeling like, what if our only job is to just be.
My mouth is literally dropping open because I had this moment when I was sitting on my chair this morning about what our job is as humans. Oh my gosh, go ahead.
All right. Okay. So what if my only job is to just be available for what life brings in front of me in the moment? And here I am. Is this what you thought?
Yes.
My God, I'm dying.
I mean, I can't even like deal with this right now. It's so crazy. My nose is itching. I don't know if that's because we're
I'm
onto
getting
something or whatever, but yeah.
chills because I was thinking,
Uh,
your only job, I mean, that was kind of like the download, right? It was like,
yeah.
your only job is to be available,
Yep.
be available for life. And this
Yeah.
friend wanted to stay for a few hours and bring their puppy, and it was fun. And I could
Yeah.
have been attached to the fact that, no, I told Katie 10:30, like, oh my
Oh
God,
yeah.
wait. And then, oh
Right.
no, we can't do this. And instead I was kind of just open to letting it
To going
unfold
with the
forever.
flow. Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
naturally left at 12:30. And then I was like, okay, feed the
Hmm.
kids, whatever.
Yeah.
And I just felt like, yeah, your only job is to be available. Like, what if we went through life
Yes.
thinking, I'm just supposed to be available?
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny that you're saying that because I was sitting outside this morning and I actually only sat out there for a little bit because I was going to get ready for our meeting at 10:30. And so I was like, I almost didn't even go out because I was like, no, I feel a little rushed. Because I like to sleep in. So I was like, it was like 9 o'clock.
I know,
I
I
was
was
rolling
thinking
out of
about that too.
bed.
I was like, oh shoot, 10:30 is early for her. Like I
I
already made her
know.
get up early. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's so funny because, but the girls were still kind of asleep. And I was like, do I wake them up or not? I was like, no, I'm going to let them sleep. And I went and got my breakfast and I was like, oh, do I eat inside or go? I was like, no, because every morning well, when it was colder outside, I would sit in the front room and be able to look outside. But when it's warmer outside, I just go sit in my back patio because it's still shaded. And I sit out there and just watch nature.
Mm.
And as I'm sitting there, I was like, I wonder what, like, what is our job? Our job on this planet is what? Like, I was just sitting there and I'm totally going to miss it because in the moment, it's always just this profound, like, beautiful, like, download of information and this answer. And what I'm trying to think of the answer was that really just kind of like clearing out all the cobwebs. And I guess more of like what you were saying was just kind of like being available. And I'm so bummed that I can't remember exactly what it was that the answer was. It was just so beautiful that it was like just being present, really. I mean, like you were saying, like going with the flow, being available. That's just that being that in that present moment. And that's exactly what it felt like. It was just like, I don't have to do anything. I just have to be available. I just have to be here. I just have to be present and everything will unfold the way it's supposed to unfold. And like with your friends this morning, you weren't planning on that, but that was your humanness being like, oh, I have to plan it. And this is what I told Katie. And this is, I need to stick with my schedule. And then feeling that anxiety about it. And you could have felt the anxiety about it, but just being aware of it and just allowing it to be like, oh, yeah, well, I could get upset. I could get this, but it's reality. You can't argue with reality. And then when you argue with reality, what happens? Well, you get upset, you get angry, you get testy, you whatever. You start snapping at people, thinking about it's supposed to be different than what it is. So
Yeah, I mean,
I
and
just,
I think it's helpful. I think it was helpful for me not to get in that anxious place because it was you. Whereas, like, she'll understand. She's not going
totally,
to freak out. She
no,
understands going with the flow, kind of,
yes,
like, so it wasn't like I had to worry about what you thought. Did I want to be
right,
respectful of your time? Was I feeling like, oh, shoot, I'm
sure,
I'm messing up her time schedule? I felt bad
hmm,
about that. But at the same
sure,
time, I was kind of like, I know she believes and understands in the flow of life. And so I'm
yeah,
not too caught up in that. Like, I'm not super anxious about that.
right,
And I think that's a lot of it too. Like when we're interacting with people who can't be that way, who can't
right.
go with the flow, who are,
That always makes me a little anxious.
yeah,
Is it with you?
yes,
Yeah,
exactly. Like being with
yeah,
those kind of people, and you're just like, I have to be a certain way, or I won't be
yes,
accepted, or they'll be angry, or this will be a
yes.
thing, you know?
Right. Well, that's interesting you said that too, because last night, Kinley, so she met this friend on her virtual class that she did this year, and just sweetest little girl. And I actually never met her, but they would talk every day. They would be on Zoom or whatever, Google Hangouts, whatever, for hours doing the homework together and just hanging out because she lives in Yuma and Kinley lives here.
Yeah.
And so she would always talk about this friend and just, Mom, she's so fun, this and that. And her grandparents live here. And so she said, well, she wants to come to Tucson and hang out. And I said, okay, that's great. And I said, but, let's meet. And so I guess her mom said the same thing, let's meet. And so we ended up doing like a hangouts like we're doing right now,
Fun.
and talking to the mom and everything. Super cool mom. But I was noticing myself, like catching myself. I don't know if you've gone through this lately, but for me, I tend to like stumble over my words when I'm talking to people, because I'm almost having to learn how to be just my authentic self without having to put on a show, like without having this other person see me as what I want them to see me as. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
because I mean, like, that's your
Yeah.
ego, right? Like, that's your
Yes.
ego jumping in. That's your ego. Like, you should
Yeah.
be saying this. You should be presenting like this.
Yes.
And it's like that internal battle where it's like, no, I'm talking. No,
It's so weird because I notice it now as I'm
really
talking to people. Yes. And so I'm like, I was listening to myself talking to her, and I was like, I was forgetting words. I was thinking I was going to say something else and trying to be witty and all this kind of stuff. And I was just like, well, it's like, stop. Like, I just was like, just be quiet, And I was getting nervous about it, because it's just so unnatural for me to have this new awareness. And then, like, who really am I when I'm talking to new people, like, for them to get to know me and me to get to know them. I don't know. It's weird, because it's new territory for me.
totally. No, I remember that
Yeah.
years ago. I mean, I like remember the day, like kind
Really?
of like what you were talking about. Yeah, Taylor was doing karate, right? So this was
Okay. Years
5,
ago.
6, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And I saw an old friend that I hadn't seen in a while. So I'd been doing this awareness, doing this observing, doing this kind of
Yeah.
being conscious.
Right.
This was a person that I had a relationship with when I was unconscious, right?
Okay.
Very,
Yes.
had a certain personality, presented a certain way,
Yes.
whatever. It was a mom,
Yes.
an old mom friend. And I remember like talking with her and feeling like, what am I saying? Like, this is not me. Like, this is the old me. That's the old me coming out. And I remember walking out of the karate place being like, what the hell was that? Like, what just happened there?
What was I doing? Who is that?
So surreal. Yeah, because I had
Yeah.
been practicing being conscious for so long, and then this person triggered me into like these kind of unconscious responses, this self-consciousness, this trying to be something I'm not. And it was just the weirdest experience.
It's weird.
Jump back there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I noticed it last night, because I had noticed it a couple of weeks ago when I was out with my friends, like you were talking about, like ones that you were unconscious with before. And you and I had actually talked about this a little bit, and just being with them and thinking like, I have to say the funnest thing. I have to be witty, and I have to be this and that, because that's what I was always trying to be before, and maybe I am witty or whatever. I don't know. But when I'm trying to be like that and put on this persona of them, like they need to like me for whatever. And then after I left, I was like, well, why do they like me? Do they like me because of the way I look? Do they like me the way, as I say fun things? I don't know. I mean, that's something I have to explore. But instead of me trying to be this other person I think that they want me to be, it's a whole new territory. Like, it's weird.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the reason that you think they like you, which is like, I say witty things.
Yeah.
Like, they might not even, they'd be like, I would never characterize you as witty.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Like you have this idea. Right. And it's like, I know. I don't know.
Yeah. I have no clue what they really think, because I don't think any of us really know. We have this idea in our head, but and where we're trying to portray that person. Yes.
Right, exactly.
And
like
it could
what
be
you think your best thing is,
your best self is. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas it's so funny. That's so true, because like if I think kind of like funny or dry humor for me, sarcasm, kind of whatever.
Yeah.
But it's funny because like whenever I say that to people who love me, they're like, huh, yeah, I mean, kind of, yeah, I see that. And I'm just like I thought that
like,
was one of my main
I really
things.
thought that's what I was.
Yeah, I thought like definitely one of my top characteristics.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, like
That's
when I
funny.
was trying to start my business years ago,
Yeah.
ended up not coming to fruition. I remember asking
Right.
my friends, do you think I'm like funny or caring? Like, what do you think the most important is? And
Yeah.
I like telling the stories and doing that, or like the caring. And I got the caring, the open, the sensitive. And that
Yes.
surprised me because I was like,
Interesting.
oh, you know, because I know that.
You didn't think that about yourself.
And
Oh.
my barrier to being caring, right, is the
Mm-hmm.
sarcasm. It's the
Right.
self, you know, putting yourself down and making
Yeah.
jokes of myself. But they still saw the caring. You know, they still saw the open.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I
Oh,
was
that's
still
cool.
very vulnerable about that. That I thought, well, when I protect myself and I'm funny and sarcastic, that must be the best part of me. And they're like, no.
Right. No, that's not. Yeah.
So it is funny how we think
Interesting.
about that.
Yeah. Yeah. As you're talking, it's funny because I remember back in, I want to say it was high school, I had gone to go see a counselor and just really struggling with self identity and just who I was, and just really didn't think I had any friends. And, maybe I didn't, I don't know. But the counselor's homework for me was to ask my friends to tell me what they thought of me. And I was like, oh, really? Like, that
Right.
I do not want to do that. Like, it was so
Exactly.
scary. And she goes, I bet you'll find that they'll just be so caring, and they'll tell you. But this now, as I'm thinking about this, I'm like, in high school, girls in high school are not going to be truthful and be like, you're annoying, you're this, you're that. They're going to be like, oh, you're great, you're so
Yeah.
nice, and
Okay,
you're so
I love
this, you're
you.
so
Like
that.
the
It's
sweetest
like,
thing.
yeah, I know. So I did get all of that, right? But then it almost felt like it really wasn't authentic. However, at the time, it felt authentic. So I did absorb it, and I did take it in because I was like, okay, because I really needed to hear it,
It was
because I
what you
really just
needed
thought
at the
like
time.
it was totally what I needed at the time. Whether it was authentic or not with them, I don't know. But it was exactly what I needed because I felt it. Like I was just like, okay. And then it made me just, get through life a little easier at that
Yeah.
moment. Um, but yeah, I mean, as an adult, really observing friendships and observing just relationships and seeing like, how different I am. And my mom has said this to me many times, how different I am with my family and really close friends than I am with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I used to always just kind of adapt to what I thought other people would think of me.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'd go into a situation and act like I'm this, again, witty, whatever person.
Right.
And it really wasn't me. And so, I don't know where I'm going with that, but it's interesting now that I observe myself meeting new people or even seeing people that I was unconscious with before, and how I'm behaving now, and really observing my behavior.
You're
So,
right, because I think that there's, for me, what I realized early on was like I'm a deep thinker. I like to
mm-hmm,
philosophize. I like to think
mm-hmm,
about things and discuss them deeply. And I
yes,
realized a lot of people don't like that. So,
I know. Because that's how I am too. And I think
exactly.
that's why it was so hard for me to have friends, because I was like, I want those deep, lasting friendships that are, yeah, like philosophizing and like this. And not a lot of people like to do that or talk
Yeah.
about that stuff.
And so what
So,
we learned is that we should be witty and funny and kind of,
yeah,
be that, look like we're jokey and lighthearted, because most
right.
people couldn't handle, our deep talks. Like I remember
Yeah.
my friend was like, whenever you ask somebody like, hey, how are you? It's like, hey, how are you? I'm just like, oh God. She's like, nobody can get away from answering a fake answer for you. And I was like, wow, okay,
That's
like
so funny.
I'm super intense, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
right. And so part of it is being lighter, but I realized that was a coping mechanism. My humor
Yes.
and all of that stuff is a coping mechanism to
Yes.
make people more comfortable. with the fact that I'd rather just know their deep, dark secrets and talk about it all day.
Oh, me too. Oh my gosh. For hours.
Yeah.
Like
we do.
Forget the fluff stuff, forget the surface stuff. It's like, let's go in. Let's really get in there and find out what's going on. Yeah. Totally. I love that.
So yeah, I mean, it is a practice to be like, that's okay. And the ones who can't handle that, and I guess that's the thing, is the more that I've become comfortable with, like, that's who I am. And I can be lighthearted and fun and all of that stuff.
Sure.
But the ones that stick around, I'll always get to the deep stuff. And I find that I have more friends like that who are like, oh, yeah, I've wanted to be deep too. I didn't, it's like
you didn't know that's how you, exactly.
When you start being okay with it and being authentic.
Yeah. And that's, I think for me, I'm truly trying to embrace that.
Yeah.
And be okay with that, because like a lot of my friendships, I mean, I'd say majority of them are, except for really with you, are all very surface. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's rare if I get into deep conversations with people, and I don't know. I think a lot of people just don't really want to, because it exposes a lot of stuff and they don't want to have to look at it. And I don't know. I'm getting kind of like interruptions here, but I think it's because I'm trying to say something, or my ego is wanting to say something, because a lot of it, I'm thinking right now, like politics, I'm getting like politics stuff, because political stuff, like I could just really relate a lot with people about political stuff that, agree with me. And now when I talk about it or want to talk about it, I have such a different view on it that I'm a little guarded in talking with people about it now, with the understanding that I have now about it. Does that make sense? Am I even making sense?
Like, because people are still in that place of like seeing it superficially, and you've kind of taken it and been like, oh wait, I'm like, this from like a way higher level.
Yes,
there's a level of what we see.
Yeah.
And that can be maddening and seems like people are right or wrong. I mean, is that right? And then
absolutely, yes. Because I mean, you and I talked about this so much. I mean, we go in when we talk about politics or whatever's going on around us. Like we go in, instead of it being like just the political politics, right? It's just let's just talk about politics, this and that, and this is maddening. This, like you're saying, I want to go in and really talk about stuff on a deeper level, and people either they haven't done the work on it or they just don't want to know. It's,
Okay, so this came up this week. So Craig,
isn't that funny how we totally went off on these little tangents? It started off with one thing and now it goes into another thing. Anyways,
this is the natural process, right? Of our
this is true. This is usually how it goes.
Like never a moment of pausing, seems like. We kind of just move from one comment to another. But so Craig, he loves diving into a topic. So he just read a book about General Custer.
Oh, neat.
And he's always reading historical things or whatever. So he read this book. It's like this super thick book talking all about kind of what the Americans did to the Native Americans. And he was like, at the end of it, so he's been reading this book for like a month and a half or whatever, telling me things here and there, reading me little excerpts and stuff like that.
Neat. Yeah.
And at the end of it, he was like, that book was such a paradigm shift. And I was like, well, how come? What did it do? And he's like, I guess the way I've always thought about history is that, we do bad things to each other. Like our history our world is made up of people who rape, people who pillage, people who steal, people who enslave. And so I just kind of saw it as, well, the Americans, the white men came in. You're right. It was a bad scene. That's the only thing we knew. He said, but this book really helped me to see that there was a segment of people who didn't want that, like who really wanted to respect the Native Americans.
Interesting. Yeah. And do we ever hear about that?
No.
Yeah.
And that the Native Americans, like they were just fighting for their lives. Wow. And I was kind of like, like that seems obvious to me. Like you never considered that the Native Americans were literally like raped from, and that they had ideas and things and a civilization that we could have utilized. And he was like, not really. I never thought about it that deeply. And I was like, man, that's so interesting.
Well, it's so true, because everything that's taught to us is so surface level, you know, and when you really sit down and read and think about, you know, as you're talking about them, like, they really were fighting for their lives. They were fighting for their freedoms. They were fighting for keeping their land, everything that they had established. You know, you never really think about that stuff.
Well, so here's the other piece of that, which was not all white men, even men in power, believed that we should shove Indians on reservations. There was actually a big segment of the white population that was like, let's respect them. Let's kind of give them their space. But there was a small group who just kept
the powerful
pushing.
Group.
It's that consciousness of greed, of power that really took over, and it infiltrated and it ruled. It ruled the day. And it's like, man.
And it still is.
It still is. But we all get lumped in, right? So like if you were the white man, you just toppled over the Native Americans. And while that's true, let's look again. Is it the white, or is it the greed consciousness? Is it the power consciousness? Is it the corrupt consciousness? Because then if you're reading about Custer, which he read and explained to me, like Custer was like that. He embodied this kind of ambitious greed, power persona that ended up, you know, destroying him inevitably. He lost to the Native Americans, but not before he created such a horrible relationship between the white man and the Native Americans. And so again, it's just
that's
like,
interesting.
We think about it superficially. We lump everything together like, oh, white men are bad. They just came. And it's like, it's not so simple.
And it's not so surface like that. Exactly. It's not so simple. And it's so interesting you're saying that, because my whole life, I really tried to put everything in black and white, not necessarily like skin color. It was always just simple for me to keep it black and white. And even though I, you know, like we're talking right now, wanting to go deeper and really think about stuff and philosophize about stuff on the surface level, it's so much easier to just keep it that simple.
Right.
But in the grand scheme of things, it's never that simple. Not one thing on this earth is that simple.
Right.
So,
and I think, you know, I think what was unique about Craig is that what made it, because he's a black and white kind of guy too.
Yeah.
What made it not as simple is that his heart came in it. And the book like really made him empathize with the Native Americans and see so clearly kind of the corrupt thinking of the people in the American government, where he like connected so deeply with the Native American story.
Wow.
So then it brought his heart online. Do you know what I mean? Like we can stay in our brains, in our logic, and be black and white and simple and kind of just kind of make arguments. But the second your heart comes online and you start to that's when it gets muddy. And you're like, okay, wait.
I have to think about this. Oh, this is uncomfortable.
So much more complicated. Exactly. And no one's, it's almost like it just can't be that easy. There's not one person to blame. Everybody made mistakes.
Exactly.
Everybody made mistakes.
Well, and I think that's what people want to do is, you know, put people into a box and just be like, it's all of these people that are to blame. And it makes it easier that way, like you're saying. But if you really are to, you know, pull the lens back and look at it all, it's like, oh no, there's so much more to it than just this little piece that you're seeing. But you have to be willing to even open yourself up to see that and look at it. And yeah, it's messy. It's not easy. It's not pretty. But it's important because it just explains so much about who we are and what we're here to do, etc. So.
And just to provide that compassion and that awareness. Wait, maybe I've just been making this too simple, because it's way harder to try and understand both sides. It's way harder to see that and even with the Native Americans, it was like, he's like, there were some that were like bloodthirsty for sure. So it was,
Oh, yes.
again, not blameless. Nobody was blameless. Nobody was blameless.
No.
And
Right.
so as we were talking, I was like, you know what, Craig, that's the awakening process. Your
Yeah.
heart got opened with that book. It
Yeah.
shifted your paradigm of how
Right.
you understand how the world worked and how we
Mm-hmm.
got here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually a very graceful process. You were
It
ready,
is.
because I was like
Mm-hmm.
shocked that he hadn't thought about that before. Because me, as
Mm-hmm.
a heart-centered person, as an empathizer, I'm always trying to kind of understand both sides of the story, trying to, and never
Mm-hmm.
saying it has to be one or the other. It's both parties
Mm-hmm.
come together, both parties had faults. But the
Mm-hmm.
awakening process really is a graceful kind of like, oh, wow, my heart came
Wow.
online. It
Yeah.
shifted my whole paradigm. I'm like thinking about how things moved in America so differently now.
Yeah.
I mean, for him,
Right.
that's what he's thinking.
Oh, oh, absolutely. And it's so cool to see that, because then you start really looking at everything differently. I mean, that happened to me a couple weeks ago when I found this video about history and stuff that I thought was one way, and it's completely different. And it just kind of really opens your mind, and you're like, okay, then what does that mean for everything else? Is it, why are we only taught this little bit? And what does that mean for my life, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. I mean, we could go into
Well, there's a lot that we've
a whole
discussed,
nother.
right? There's just
Yeah.
a paradigm shift of like how our world works. We've
Yeah.
talked a lot about the awakening as far as really coming at life from a spiritual perspective. And in
Mm-hmm.
a real sense, learning about our history, learning about our politics, learning about, some of the things that have been kept secret from us
Mm-hmm.
is a spiritual piece, but it's a knowledge piece of like
Mm-hmm.
understanding,
Mm-hmm.
wait, what did I take for granted? What did I accept
Yeah.
blindly? Why,
Mm-hmm.
why did I do this?
Yeah. I like how you said, what did you take for granted? Because this is just coming in because I don't even know what I was doing this week, but it was meditating on something. And probably when I was sitting outside and just looking around and thinking about nature and thinking about, our freedoms and what is for free. And there's very little that is in our world that is free. And as I was sitting there kind of like pulling it back and really looking at it and thinking about the sun and how the sun is here for us. It's free. We don't have to do anything about it. It's always here. It always rises. It always sets. It's always here. And nobody can take that away from us, in a sense, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, well, what else is? And then I was thinking about like our senses, right? Our smell, our taste, our touch, etc. But then, there's people who don't have all of their senses intact. And then I was thinking about just nature in general, and thinking like how much we take for granted. Just the wind, for example. I mean, I was just like sitting out there and just like feeling the wind. I mean, we live in Arizona, okay, in Tucson, and it's so hot right now. And sitting
My hair
outside and
dryer.
feeling the yes. This morning when I'm out there at 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm thinking it's like, I don't know, 96 degrees. And I'm like, wow, I'm still so grateful that we have wind and I can feel it. So I don't know where I'm going with that, but it was just one of those where it was like, it just made me really think about like our freedoms and and the nature, and what's really something that cannot be manipulated. There's so much manipulation out there that is all around us, and those things that are in nature, I mean, I don't even know.
No,
I don't even like to
but
say that they
it's
aren't,
really
right?
interesting because I think that's the whole process, right? When you start to kind of understand you're divine,
Mm-hmm.
you're a spiritual being, you're connected to source, you're
Mm-hmm.
connected to the creation. When you
Mm-hmm.
start thinking about that, and then you start observing, okay, well then what are the laws of nature? What are the rules
Thank you. That's
in
it.
nature,
Yeah. Right.
right? It's like,
Right.
what do the birds do? What are the
Yeah.
animals doing? What do the trees do? Like, what
Right.
am I observing here? What is natural? What naturally happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to question everything. Like, I remember when I started the whole paleo thing, and I was looking for, we were on raw milk and we were eating the grass-fed
I
beef.
remember that.
You
Yeah.
remember
When
all
you
of
told me,
that?
like, oh, I got the milk. I remember you telling me
Years
about
ago.
your milk. And I was like, what? They have like that? What?
Yeah.
You can get
Yeah.
that?
I was like going to find the farmer and, doing all
Yeah.
that stuff. And we were spending so much money. And I was just like, we're literally spending to our paycheck to make sure we have raw milk. And
Yeah.
that for me was a moment where I was like, what does God want? Like,
Yes.
does it make sense that we live in a world where to get healthy meat and raw milk, we would have to pay an arm and a leg?
Yes.
Like, that
Yes.
is not what God wanted for me. That is not what God wanted for me. Now, are there different conclusions I could draw from that? Sure. Maybe I should go on a plant-based diet, or maybe there's something wrong with the way our world is set up, that
Yes.
that things that are healing and healthy and available, that have always been available to us,
Mm-hmm.
are now so expensive that
Yes.
normal people, like, because at that point, I believed this was a very healing thing that I was doing for myself and my family. And I was thinking, how
Mm-hmm.
unfair. Most people
Right.
can't even afford this. Like, is
I
that what
know.
God wants? Is that what
Well, and it's interesting you're saying that too, because I've thought about that a lot too, where, when I was eating all fruits and vegetables and raw stuff and all this kind of stuff, I'm thinking, why is it so freaking expensive? And what if, like, luckily my husband makes enough money that we can all afford this, but what if for some reason he loses his job or whatever? I mean, we wouldn't be able to eat like that. We'd have to go eat crap. And why is crap food so cheap? I mean, it just really like opens up that whole conversation and the whole black hole of what is given to us for free. This nature. I mean, water, for goodness sakes. We have fresh water. We'll never run out of water. I read something about we have access to fresh water, but for some reason we don't. Like,
Right,
nature has provided, God has provided that for us. The sun, the water, the air, the food, all of it is provided for us for free, but yet we have to go out and buy it.
buy it. Countries that don't have it, there are villages and
And
countries
why?
that do not have
Right.
access to this.
Which is just mind-boggling to me. How is that
Now
possible?
there's oxygen bars, because now
Yes.
even our air isn't as good as it could be. And it's way
Right.
better to pay for your air and have it be really fresh oxygen. I mean, this is kind of the direction we're moving. And it's like, have we totally convoluted nature and God's creation? And as you begin to wake up, as you begin to question these things and try to think from God's perspective, which we can't, but you start to think about how is nature set up? What are the laws of nature? What am I observing about the laws of nature? And am I living? Is our world anywhere in alignment with that?
Right.
And then you begin to
sure
let
doesn't feel
go
like
of
it.
our world. I know. Then you have to, you naturally then begin to let go of some of the paradigms we've created within our world.
For sure. And then then it just like your mind is blown constantly. Just like, what?
Yeah. When you really start to find the answers. Well, why is it like this? Why is it so expensive? Why is our water? Why aren't people having water? What?
I know.
And
it
then
doesn't make any sense to me.
And those are the rabbit holes, right? I mean, that's how you how you get your mind blown.
Yeah. and it takes hours and hours. But at the same time, it's also, like you were saying, the knowledge part of it is like really learning that, but then intuitively saying, like, what can we do about this? And what is it God's wanting us to know about this? Why are we being shown this? And what can we do about it? And that's a whole
Well,
process.
exactly. I mean, that was the whole thing. Like, I remember just going back to that moment where we had left the farmer's market and spent like an
Mm-hmm.
exorbitant amount of money on meat and dairy for that week. And I was feeling anxious, and I was like, I'm so attached to this is the only way I can get healthy. Like, I'm so attached that it has to be
Yeah,
this.
right.
It's not feasible. So what do I
No,
do with that? And that's what I think.
exactly.
We're in a world right now where everything feels out of control. You can't
Mm-hmm.
control it. You can't control that there are countries not getting fresh water. You can try to do
Right.
something, and then you find out
Yeah.
charities are corrupt. You
Mm-hmm.
can, try to do something about your health, try to do something about the politics, only to
Mm-hmm.
find that you actually don't have a lot of control. You're not making a
Right.
difference. And it
Right.
forces you to come back
To
here
go in. Mm-hmm.
and be like, how do I find peace in a world that I cannot change?
Yes.
How do I find healing? How do I find
Mm-hmm.
health? How do I find peace? How do I find vitality when I can
Mm-hmm.
do nothing about the
Yeah.
corruption or the craziness of
I
the
mean,
world?
it's really kind of beautiful. I mean, for me as a retired control freak, I mean, I'm still learning, but um, it really forced me to come back here. And I'm so absolutely grateful because I actually do feel at peace. I do feel more comfortable here and more in control here than I ever have out there. And it took me a really long time to get there. So glad I did. And now, when I'm observing things outside of me, like why is there no fresh water and why is it whatever, I have to come back here and really process that for myself and think, okay, what can you do to give to yourself and then be able to give to others, in that sense. But um it is such a beautiful thing to be able to see that, yeah, there's nothing out here that I can control. I can only control here. And um it's such a beautiful, beautiful journey.
Well, I love what
So
you said just about how it's so much more peaceful to realize you can't control anything out here and you can only control here. It's like a
mhm.
relief.
It is such a relief. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
like, no, I think I can do
Whew.
that.
I can totally, yeah, it is. It's because you feel like the weight's lifted. Like I always felt like the weight was on my shoulders. Like I have to control this. I have to control this. I have to do this. I have to be this person. I have to, whatever. And when you really just let all that go, I mean, that's like the whole thing where they say, let go, let God. It's like, yeah,
Hmm.
because you can't. It's bigger than you. Like you were saying before with like the politics, it's like, yeah, you can't control any of that. I mean, it's really just let go, let God, because God is in control. We just need to come back here and remember that and just be at peace about it. And anytime these things are coming up and we're seeing things around us and feeling like it's all out of control, it's literally just boom, right back to us. It's like hitting us over the head with a frying pan, like, nope, come back here.
Yeah. Well, but
Mm-hmm.
because I think the more you begin to dig deep into like what
Mm-hmm.
could change our world, like
Yeah.
why are we so off track? You
Mm-hmm.
realize that why we're off track is because we are so focused on those outside things. And you come
Yeah.
inside, you feel the peace, you feel like, okay, wait, I'm the only one I can control. I'm the only one.
Yep.
It's my
Yep.
healing, it's my abundance, it's my joy. And once I
Right.
master that, and if we all did that, our world would be
Yes.
different tomorrow.
Yep.
And so it's like,
Absolutely.
again, why is it that we feel we have to come back here when we realize we can't change out here? Because God's like, dude, that's the only way you change out there. That is the
Right.
only way you change
Right.
the
Right.
situation out there. And that's the
Yes.
process.
Yes.
That is the only process. And so it's like,
Right.
but we haven't realized that yet. Most of us haven't realized yet.
No. And it's hard.
Yeah.
It's not easy. I mean, it's, as we're sitting here talking about it, it's like, oh, it's great and this, that, but doing it moment to moment, day by day, people don't want to do that. It's so much easier to be distracted and try to control your outside because you think it's doing something, but
Oh, right. I
it
mean,
never does. I mean,
it makes you feel purposeful because it's
yeah.
really hard. I mean, like, think about this awakening process for you
Yeah.
this past year.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
much of it was just kind of sitting and being?
Oh, probably 90%. And that was scary AF. That's what it
Exactly.
was. Really
And then
scary
admitting that
because
to someone,
yeah.
I'm
Well,
just
like you
kind
were
of
saying,
sitting.
like your purpose, like, oh my gosh, no, I have to do this, I have to do this, and I have to be if I'm this, I'm a good mom. If I'm this, I'm a good wife. If I'm this, I'm a good employee. Level. It's just like, what?
Mhm.
No. If you just sit and just be and like I was doing this morning, just observing nature.
And
It's
be
like
available for life to show you the next thing
available.
you need to
Yes.
work on or do or be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like
Yeah.
to admit that to someone, like, because everybody, like in our world
Well,
today,
this
it's like,
immediate judgment,
oh,
right?
I'm so busy. What'd you say?
Oh, it's just immediate judgment
Oh,
when you
absolutely.
say it to somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the value in our society is to be busy, to look like you have a
Yeah.
busy, full life.
Right. Right.
And I feel like I have a busy, full life, but I spend a lot of time quiet. I spend a
Oh, for
lot of
sure.
time quiet. And
Yeah.
so I
And
often
being
choose that.
comfortable with that. And that's hard. It's being comfortable with that. Not having to be busy in the sense of like you were saying, like the outside world sees you as being busy. Like the other day, what was it, Wednesday? Literally sat on my couch all day, didn't even change out of my pajamas, and I didn't feel guilty about it.
Mhm.
Whereas before I'd have felt guilty. Like my husband would be like, "What'd you do today?" I'd be like, "Nothing."
A lot. Yeah,
Like
I know.
it, my old self, and I did have those little like ego moments where I was like chiming in to be like, well, say you did the dishes and say you did the, folded some laundry and say I'm just like, stop. Who am I trying to impress? I know exactly what I did today. Do I need to impress my husband to be like, oh, I did this because it means something? No, just be you, be authentic. And if you really need to just sit on the couch that day, you sit on the couch that day. It's okay. And allowing ourselves to have those moments is the
Exactly.
hardest thing.
Oh, totally. I remember a few years ago, or a couple years ago, I was listening to Matt Kahn when
Mm-hmm.
I first started listening to him. And
Yeah.
he talked about the destruction of the ego, and it goes through you experience certain things as
Mm.
your ego, and it's not destruction, right? Because
Yeah.
you love your
We
ego.
love
It's
our
never
ego.
going
Yeah.
away. It's never
Yeah.
going away, but just kind of inviting it to not be in charge as much and
Right.
your spirit be in charge. But
Right.
he talked about, so you're going to go through phases as your ego stands down. And
Oh, I like that.
yeah, and it's frustration, and I won't get all of them, but I remember the ones that
Okay.
I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Frustration, boredom, and those are the only two I remember. So I think
Yeah.
there were like 4 or 5. I don't know. But it was
Yeah. Yeah.
frustration and boredom because I remember those so specifically, where it was just
Yeah.
like, oh, bored. Like you don't want to do anything. And I think you've kind of, and you, of course, went through them this year. Like,
Miss Hair right here.
yeah, I know. You were like, frustration, got it. I felt frustration yesterday. I nailed it. My ego's done with that one. Today I was
Right.
bored
I
and
wish
I
it was
was
that easy.
done with that. Where for
Yeah.
me, it
Yeah.
was like, oh, I remember those 6 years I was in frustration and my ego tried to let go. But I
It's so
remember, but
funny.
it was a phase for me. It was a long
Yeah.
time. I remember of being in boredom. And now
Interesting. Okay.
it was not having much, like then it was not having much to do, feeling anxious about it, feeling
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I'm bored. I'm not doing my purpose. Whereas like now
Yeah.
I think I have less to do,
Yes.
but I love it.
I
I'm just
know.
kind of like, yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Spend a couple
Yeah.
hours a day just kind of being quiet.
Yes. And being okay with that. It's interesting that you were saying about the frustration, the boredom, because I was listening to another Gnostic teachings podcast while I guess I was walking or something, and he was talking about the ego and the ego with tying it to like the 7 capital sins or 7 deadly sins, and then doing the opposite, or like noticing the opposite. So, and I'm going to get these wrong too, because they're all on my phone, which I'm recording on, but it was like, I think like gluttony, and then the opposite of gluttony. I can't think of what it was, but
Temperance or
I was
discipline? What
thinking
would be the
temperance.
opposite?
Yeah. Yeah.
What would be
Discipline. It was discipline.
okay.
And then, greed with, giving, or, yeah, giving, I guess. But anyways, what was so cool was like, when you're experiencing those ego moments of, um, frustration or greed, or whatever those seven deadly sins are, to really to for you, it's for you to see that, work through it, so that you can have the opposite, so you can live the opposite, right?
Yes, right.
So like you
Be
can
in it,
live
like
the, instead
feel
of
it,
the,
kind of.
be it, feel it, notice that that's just the ego, whatever that's showing up for you is that greed moment where you don't want to give something, or be generous. Notice that's just part of one of those layers of ego that needs to be worked through, so that you can have that opposite, that generosity, that the flow, or whatever. It was way more in depth, but I just liked how it wasn't just ego as being just one thing. The ego is so multi-layered and so multifaceted that, you may just be like, oh, it's just ego, but you can really almost fine tune it and be like, okay, which ego is that? Is it my greed ego? Is it my lust ego? Is it my gluttony? Is it my, and there's maybe even more than that, but really just kind of like fine tuning it, and then being aware next time something that comes up, you can be like, oh, that's that aspect of myself that I need to really work on to be more in flow with whatever the opposite of that one was, if that
I
makes
like
sense.
that. Yeah, that's a really
Yeah, it's really
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah. I have often kind of meditated on the seven deadly sins and then
Mm-hmm.
kind of what are the opposites of that? Like what
Yeah.
if those are the seven deadly sins, what is the opposite of,
Yeah.
all of those things? And then how do I cultivate that in myself?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like as you were talking just now, what came to my mind was
Mm-hmm.
all of those things are of the flesh, of the body, of the experience. They're all
Of
experience
the
of
external,
the
right? That
flesh.
that we're trying to control, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then the opposites are really experiences of the soul level,
The
right?
heart,
I mean,
right?
that's
Yeah.
kind of the,
Yeah.
yeah, the heart. I mean, if you
Mm-hmm.
talk about love, well,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe this metaphor isn't going to work, but I was thinking that very much those seven deadly sins are sins of the flesh. And then I think
Mm-hmm.
about Jesus, who talks about you must kill the body. And it really is about
Mm.
experiencing those sins of the flesh,
Okay.
understanding them, and letting them die through the cultivation of their opposites, which is manifested in
Yeah.
spirit. You know
Right,
what I mean?
right. Oh, that makes so much sense. Yeah.
And so
Well,
that
and when you're
it's the
talking about
work
that,
of the
like the
spirit.
the, the metaphors that Jesus taught, right? Because it's not literal. And when you're saying like the body, that just made me think about, like, I was thinking about this also this week, and thinking, things would come up into my life and in my experiences, and instead of taking them literally, they're just metaphors. So I always want to attach to it literally and be like, oh, I need to dissect what this means, and what is this and that, like, I guess, I'm just thinking, like, the ego just popped in. um instead of looking at it metaphorically, and again, like, kind of like for me, like zooming out and being like, it wasn't literally this conversation or literally this experience. What was the metaphor within this that you were trying to learn something from? What was the lesson? Because again, going back to my whole black and white thing, is I always try to like really hone in on, oh, is this experience, and I have to really dissect it, and I have to really get in there and find out what this is. And in the meantime, it's really not that. That's just how God shows it to us. because we're all three-dimensional. We're you know, we're flesh, we're human, we're bodies, and that's how we experience it. But really, to get to the heart is metaphorically, you know, symbolically. It's not the real situation. And this has made me think about, you know, when people say, you know, with reality is that, you know, oh, I just lost it.
Oh, man.
Because my ego was trying to step in there and like try to
just like, this is gonna be a good one.
And then it was like, nope, sorry, not for the ego. That was the spirit.
Right, so. Exactly. And just trying to voice what the knowingness and the experience of the heart and the
so hard.
spirit, it's really hard to express it. But yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking about another thing that I was meditating on this week about, kind of along the same lines of what you were saying, which is, you know, when you step back and you're able to see that this circumstance, it's not just this circumstance that I need to dissect. It's actually more of like a pattern of circumstances in my life that I need to kind of look at and understand what is the metaphor here, what is the lesson. And I was thinking this week about like, who do you partner with, right? So like, what partner do you choose? And when I thought of it, I had the knowingness of like, no, I'm not talking about a physical partner. I'm not talking about a spouse. I'm not talking about anything. I'm talking about what emotion, feeling, limited belief is your life showing you that you've partnered with your whole life.
Interesting.
So I was thinking about doing a video for my coaching website, right? And I know people want to find out about relationships. And so I was kind of like asking, what can I say? And I started thinking about my own relationship with my husband. And how when I met him and kind of how he showed up and how we showed up for each other was very much just an expression of my own limiting beliefs and his own limiting beliefs. And through our marriage, we've come together and we've worked through that, and we've been able to let go of a lot of limiting beliefs, and our marriage is quite different from how it was when it started. But I was thinking, like, I chose him as a partner because I always partnered with unworthiness. And it showed up in different ways. And I was always a partner of unworthiness and not deserving of kind of being held in esteem. And I've been able to work through it with my husband, and choosing my husband as a partner helped me change the emotional partner that I always walk through life with, which is unworthiness, not deserving, all of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, as you're talking, it just reminds me of like when you've explained the 3 levels, you know, like at the physical level, the spiritual level, and I don't know what the 3rd level is.
I don't know. Talking about. Still kind of out there for me. I can't quite grasp.
Right. So, but that totally makes sense because, you know, as you're talking too, it just makes me think about with Robert too, is this, you know, our spouses it's not a mistake that we're with them. You know, there's always that level of that. But on the physical level, yes, there's that superficial ego level, right? And then you have like you were saying, like the partnership, not only physically, but then spiritually, on what it is that this person's going to bring out in you that you need to work on. And Robert absolutely does that for me. And then as you're talking, I'm thinking about like my kids too. You know, even though I didn't choose my kids, they chose me. But how there's just this beautiful partnership, this beautiful dance that we all do with the people in our family, and even just the people in our lives, but what they're really showing us, and what we partnered with, and what we chose without even sometimes even knowing it, physically in that sense, or egoically. It's more of, I think our spirits already knew ahead of us before we even chose that partner, or before our children chose us. It's like, you know, the spirit's already one step ahead. or 10
Well,
steps ahead, you know?
absolutely. And that's kind of the realization that I had as well, which is my ego kind of created this partnership of unworthiness, but my
Mm-hmm.
spirit was always choosing growth and
Mm-hmm.
movement towards God and the divine. And so
Mm-hmm.
lots of times I would find myself in situations that gave me what my spirit wanted, but
Yeah.
also revealed how my ego needed to heal
Yeah.
so that I could experience what my spirit ultimately wanted, which was connection with God.
Yes.
And it,
Right. Right.
so your
Mm.
spirit is, I think not only should you look at the pattern of what your ego is showing you and kind of how
Mm-hmm.
you choose that partner, that limiting belief, but then also see how your spirit's been guiding you. What have you always chosen? I always choose
Exactly.
growth. I always chose a more
Yes.
challenging situation because
Mm-hmm.
I knew it would bring out in me what I needed to
Mm-hmm.
heal. And so
Mm-hmm.
again, it's like looking on that second level. So you can look on the
Yes.
first level. What did you
Right.
choose? What partner did you choose? What
Right.
school did you choose? What family?
Right.
Then
Right.
what was your spirit choosing all of those times?
Mm-hmm.
What was the message it
Mm-hmm.
was trying to get you to
Yes.
notice
Right.
through all your
Right.
egoic choices?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, it's
It's just so cool. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's so many layers to it and so much um depth to it that you can do. But yeah, that's so, it's just so neat. I mean, as you're talking, I'm thinking about like when Lori Ladd was talking about the ego versus the higher self and listening to that, you know, what voice are we listening to? And that the higher self is that one that resonates with us, right? It's that resonance, that knowingness, that feeling that you can't explain, but you know it's right. Um, I don't know where I'm going with that,
and
but
it's
that just
always gentle, right? It's always gentle.
yeah,
It never brings you to like this, like it never
exactly.
makes you feel like, oh my
If
God, I have
it's
to do this
that, then
now.
you know, like that's not authentically who we are.
Right. That's
Yeah.
the ego jumping in and
Yeah.
fighting for its life. If you're
Exactly.
feeling
Because
that
that's what
ego,
that's its job. It wants to. It wants to
right?
be protecting, and it is protecting, and it has protected. But now it's like you were said earlier, which is just kind of moving it to the side and just you're still their ego, but now I'm in charge. You
Yeah,
know, I don't
exactly.
need you in charge anymore, and I've appreciated and I've loved it that you've taken charge and have protected me. But now it's like I need to take the wheel. You
Yeah.
know,
And I think you
so
experience when your spirit takes the wheel, you experience less turbulence. Pretty
yes,
much, I mean,
yes,
like I think about the
yes.
early parts of my marriage when I was healing a lot of my limiting beliefs, and I realized my
Mm-hmm.
spouse was just showing me, like, you
Yes,
believe this about yourself. Like, why
I
do you think
know.
he chose him? Because you've always, or why you chose him? Because you always believe that. And he's saying to you all the things
Right,
you believe. And then I had to
right.
learn to stand up and be like, wait, no, 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 no.
Mm-hmm.
This is not true about me. And
Right.
that was a process for me to find my voice. And then he shifted too. You're right, that isn't true. I
Mm-hmm.
see something else in you. I see, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
as
Yeah.
now
And
my
mhm.
spirit is really leading. I mean, it's so much more graceful. There's a lot of
Yes.
turbulence early in the marriage.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, you and I talked about this so much that our marriages are so similar in the sense of like when we chose our partners and the first few years and even years after that. I mean, it's and now I'm able to look back and see that, you know, the whole time it was just him showing me over and over and over again that you know, this is about you. These are your thoughts, these are your beliefs about yourself. He's just really showing it to you again, the mirror showing us that, but they're really our biggest mirrors. um and our kids too, so
Yeah,
yeah, it's
well, I was just gonna say, I think the most pivotal point for me when I realized like I have to give this marriage everything, because
yeah,
there
yeah.
was a time when I was like, do
Mm,
I keep going
yeah.
on with this? You know what I mean?
I know. Yep.
But it was when I connected to my spirit, because I had been listening, to my spirit for a long time, since my early 20s, before I met my husband. So I understood the voice of my spirit, and I understood that it was always seeking alignment with God, and growth, right? And it was in a moment where I was like, why in the world would I choose this?
Right.
And my spirit was like, because you want to be your best self.
Right.
And showing you where you are stopping yourself from being your best self.
And how uncomfortable that is, and how messy it is, and how, oh gosh.
Then it's like,
but
okay.
it's so for our own good. And it's just so funny that we're just like, why are we doing this to ourselves? It's like, because it's for your own good.
Yeah.
You just don't realize it because you're in this filter of your ego being like, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. And it's like, yeah, but at the same time, it's like, no, it's so beautiful. Just let it unfold naturally.
Well, and understand, and not only that, but we fool ourselves into thinking we must be in the wrong situation.
Yeah.
We fool ourselves
exactly.
into like, this is wrong. I chose wrong.
Yeah.
And if you can just sit with like, wait, how is my spirit talking to me? What does my spirit want from this? You can use every situation to move you to the next level of awareness and awakening and connection. But most of us kind of are like, no, this is wrong. This is uncomfortable. There's too many negative feelings here. This can't possibly be right.
Right.
And
right.
It's like,
yeah, it's hard because I'm still having to really decipher that as well, because it's those uncomfortable feelings where, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Yeah. It's really moving us into that listening to our higher self that I'm still really having to work on and process, because it's difficult, because it's kind of, it's so new. Well, it's new for me. It's new for me to really decipher which one. And this is just coming in. Robert and I were talking about something in our future as far as like an investment. And he's like, gosh, I don't really know what to do. And I said, Lori had done a video about this a while back, about just sitting with and feeling the energy of it. And that's how you can really listen to like your higher self in your ego. And I said, I don't know. I said, I'll try it. I haven't done it. You're like really sitting with it, because it takes time, and, it can be uncomfortable, but if you really sit with the energy of it, I guess it really helps. I don't know. I can't say that I have tried it. Maybe you have, but
yeah, no, I mean, I love how she puts things, because it's kind of like what you've experienced. And then she puts it in a way that's like, yes, that's, again, she's kind of a master at expressing the knowingness in a way that really encapsulates it. And you're like, yes, that's what it is. Well, I'm not nearly as good as that, but I agree. It's kind of like sitting with like, what is the most calming belief or understanding that I can have about this situation. Because I think when we start to, when the ego is like your frantic type A friend, he's like, oh my God, okay, we got to fix this. And like, and what are we going to do? We got to make a decision. And the ego is like looking for answers, trying,
Yes.
And I find that the spirit is far more calm. And she's like, well, but it's okay to sit here for a minute until we know for sure. Like, let's observe, let's look, let's know for sure. And then as you sit in the calmness of your spirit, you're right. You begin to kind of feel yourself being guided towards the decision, where you're like, okay,
that's what that meant.
Yeah.
And it's a practice. It's a practice, because we're not used to just sitting, like you said before, just like sitting and just being. And when we're sitting and being, that's really when we can feel those energies, our higher self speaking to us. So having to really practice that is difficult for me. I haven't quite.
No, a lot of people, I think,
really gotten there yet. Yeah.
We're just not used to being slow and sitting. This is the other thing I was thinking, because I remember, again, health and learning about health has always been, it was a big chunk of my turtle life, where it took me obviously a long time processing and reading.
Well, even as a hare, I'm still really trying to deal with that.
It's a tough one. It's a complicated one.
It is.
But I remember I was watching a documentary or kind of a series, The Truth About Cancer. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Oh,
Years ago, I was
yeah.
watching like a 10-part series or whatever.
Mhm.
But one of the things that someone who was interviewed in it said was like, I mean, if you get a diagnosis or something happens, you're not going to die tomorrow.
Right.
Like for me, that was just like, oh yeah.
Mm.
Like, why do I always feel like I have to make a decision now? Why do I always
Right.
feel like it's that fight or flight experience
Yeah.
so many of us
Right.
feel? And
Oh,
so we
yeah.
don't feel like we can sit with something. You know, everyone is just like, oh
Mhm.
my God, that happened to you. What are you going to do? Like, that's the next
Yeah.
immediate question that
It's that
somebody
instant
asks.
gratification, right? That
Right.
we want. We want the instant gratification because it's uncomfortable to sit and feel whatever we need to feel,
Or
right?
to
Which
not
is what
know.
we're supposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
Like
to not
to
know.
say
Yeah.
to someone, yeah,
Yes.
I got this diagnosis. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to sit here for a week. I mean, most people will be like, what? You can't.
What do you mean? Aren't you like freaking out? You know, you got to
Exactly.
go to
Like you got to do
get this
something.
doctor's opinions and this. Yeah.
And so it's like, what
Mm.
if we didn't? If we were just okay and realized, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm not going to die tomorrow. You might get a
Right.
car accident or whatever, but
Right.
whatever this situation
This
is,
diagnosis. Yeah.
it's your life isn't
Interesting.
going to change tomorrow for the most
Mhm.
part.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
choices and the decisions that we have to make,
Mhm.
they don't require the franticness
Right.
that we tend
Right.
to respond to them with.
Right. Yeah. No, that's good. I mean, really sitting with it and observing it and how you feel about it and listening to the energies of it. So, yeah.
And it takes longer. I mean, the more I think you need more time, the less practice you've had
Yes,
requires a
for
little
sure.
more time. So
Yeah. And then for me, like giving myself that time, like in the mornings, I'm very good about it. Like I'll wake up and I'll just kind of like linger in bed and just, I feel like I'm my most awake and open at that moment. Where it just kind of like flows for me sometimes. Like it's just coming in and coming in, coming in. I'll just, make notes and this and that. And, I'll be like, okay, this is how I'm going to do my day. Right. Like I got these great downloads and I got all this wonderful information and I'll be present in this and that. And, of course the day doesn't usually go like that,
yeah,
but, that's when I feel like my most open. I also right before bed, because I'll be reading like a Byron Katie book or some sort of, self-help book or whatever. And I'll again just these downloads and I'll just start making notes and writing things down. And it's because it's those quiet times where I'm not distracted with my husband or my children or the TV or my phone or whatever. It's just those quiet moments. But I don't allow myself to have those as much throughout the day. I mean, I could, because my kids are usually doing stuff on their own or, my husband's at work or whatever. And, that's something I have to kind of give to myself to allow myself to just have those quiet moments and it be okay. Like I told you the other day, I was sitting at home. We didn't do anything all day. Now, I wasn't just being quiet by myself. I was watching TV and, doing some other things. But I think if I just allowed myself to just have those quiet moments and really appreciate them, I think it would be so much quicker, this awakening process, even though I know it's already fast. But
you're really,
Lorian's like, please don't.
yeah,
Just slow down. No.
yeah, years and years and years for me. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean,
So
I think you're absolutely right. It's just giving ourselves permission to allow the flow. And lots of times you can't be doing anything, but just
yeah,
kind of
being.
sitting there being.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
kind of sitting and thinking and being open, like thinking with an open heart,
Yeah.
not
Not like
planning,
thinking.
not
Yeah, planning.
planning,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
setting an expectation, like, okay, I got 15 minutes. Come on, what's your
Yeah.
answer?
Right. Right. Right.
Because
Right.
I've
Right.
done
Yeah.
that before, where I'm like, come on, I
Just give me
need
the answer.
some kind
Hurry
of
up.
information
Yes.
exactly, and then it never
Yeah.
comes. But it's
No.
just kind of like a being,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's just amazing the difference between like what you were saying, like I want an answer now kind of thing. Whereas just sitting and just allowing ourselves to just be, so many beautiful things start flowing in. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's
I
so
mean,
cool.
the lack of attachment to needing it
Yeah.
to be any other moment except you just being with yourself
Mm-hmm.
allows you to experience yourself, God, your spirit in the most
Mm-hmm.
beautiful way. And then
It
as
is.
that grows, then you want it more. And maybe
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
you want more of that.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
then you give yourself more of that. I don't know.
Right. Right. Yeah. I don't know. Good stuff.
Well,
What time is it?
we've hit an hour and 20 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I just looked at my watch thinking it was going to be right at an hour. It's an hour and 20
Yeah.
minutes. So
Wow.
I have to call it. It's 2:50.
Yeah. We can
So,
call it.
but that's our natural pause. A good.
Yeah. Seriously. Oh my gosh.
I
That's true.
know.
Like we usually take like a little bit of a pause, but yeah, it's about an hour and 20 minutes. That's
I
funny.
know.
Yeah.
Insane.
Because we
But
usually have to force ourselves to stop our videos when
I
we're doing our
know. We're like,
videos
okay, yeah.
sometimes, you know.
Yeah, because we're watching
Yeah.
the time. We don't want it to go too long.
Yeah. We're like, oh, we better stop. Yeah.
Mhm.
Funny,
Um,
funny.
but no, I think that's a good stopping place. Let's see how
Yeah.
this. I mean, I'll
Yeah.
post this. Let's see.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody can hang with us this long, but
I know.
it's worth a shot.
But we probably won't. Do we think we're going to record while you're gone?
I don't know. I'll have to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I'll be spending time
Okay.
with my family, and like I say,
Yeah.
when I'm somewhere, that's where I am. And so it's
I
hard for
know.
me to pull myself away to try and go be somewhere else. You know, it's like when I'm with
For sure.
my family or with my friends, that's where
You're
I
there.
so it's hard. But
Yeah.
I will look for opportunities for downtime and
Mm-hmm.
um, connect with you to see if we can, because I think it'd be fun.
Sure.
And I'd like to
Yeah.
keep the videos going.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So,
Well, I'm open. We don't really have much going on. So,
okay. All right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to stop recording and then
Yeah.
we
So
can
I'll stop
continue to talk
recording.
maybe? Okay.
Right. Bye, guys.
Let's see if it comes up. Bye.